All right, let's get right into it. For centuries, long before anyone had a smartphone, artists were completely obsessed with capturing their own image. But here's the thing, a self-portrait was never just a picture. Nope. It was a message, a manifesto, a super carefully constructed advertisement for who they were. And it was packed with secret codes. And today, we're going to learn how to crack them wide open. But first, let me ask you something. Think about the last selfie you posted. The angle you chose, the look on your face, maybe the filter you used. What were you really trying to say with all that? Because that impulse, that need to control how the world sees us, it's not new at all. It's a tradition that goes back hundreds of years.
So, on one side, you've got our go-to tool for self-representation, and on the other, the original, the artist's self-portrait. Just think about Albrecht Dürer working on this back in the year 1500. We're talking a 500-year gap here. But the fundamental goal? It's exactly the same. Present a very specific version of yourself to the world. Dürer just had a way more complex, coded language to do it with.
And that's exactly what we're here to do. Think of this as a treasure hunt through art history. We're going to decipher the hidden language of the self-portrait. We are going to crack the code on how artists told the world who they were, what they were capable of, and why they deserve to be remembered. The first and maybe most straightforward code is all about proving you've got the skills to pay the bills. See, artists had to elevate themselves from just being seen as craftspeople to being respected intellectuals. And step one was to show the work, the actual act of creation itself. Okay, check this out. This piece is what you'd call a total flex of artistic and intellectual power. This is Johannes Gump in 1646, and he's giving us three versions of himself at once: his back, his reflection in the mirror, and the painting he's actually creating. He's not just painting, he's showing off his complete mastery of perspective, reflection, and the very idea of what it means to create an image. That mirror, it's not just a tool, it's a key part of the whole performance. And this whole performance was centered on this crucial concept called disegno. It's an Italian idea, and it's so important because it means both the physical act of drawing and the intellectual act of design. By focusing on disegno, artists were making a huge argument that their work came from the mind, from genius, not just from manual labor. They were thinkers, not just makers. And this painting illustrates that point brilliantly. This is Luis Melendez in 1746. Notice he's not holding a paintbrush. He's holding up a life drawing, a perfect example of disegno. He's staring right at us, proudly showing off the very foundation of his art, his raw ability to capture reality. This isn't just a portrait, it's his visual resume.
All right, let's get a little more subtle. What if you wanted to say, I'm important, but in a clever way? Well, you could hide yourself in plain sight. You can think of it as the original game of Where's Waldo for the art world. A really popular way to do this was the St. Luke Madonna trope. St. Luke was the patron saint of artists, and the legend was that he was the first person to ever paint the Virgin Mary. So artists would paint this scene, and surprise, surprise, they'd cast themselves in the role of St. Luke. It was a kind of holy way to put themselves at the very center of a sacred story. And you can actually watch their confidence grow over 250 years. On the left, Rogier van der Weyden in the 1430s shows St. Luke, who is probably him, as this humble, respectful observer. Now flash forward to Pierre Mignard on the right in 1695. He is front and center, dressed to the nines, and looking at us with total confidence. The artist has gone from being a witness to being the star of the show. Another cool cameo technique was called the figura in assistance, where the artist just pops up as a bystander in some grand scene. And there is no greater example than Raphael's masterpiece, The School of Athens, which is basically a who's who of all the greatest thinkers of antiquity. And there he is, over on the far right, the only person looking directly out of the painting, right at us, is Raphael himself. Now here's the crucial point. By putting himself in this crowd, Raphael isn't just signing his work. He is making the absolutely audacious claim that he, a painter, belongs among the greatest minds in all of human history. Okay, so artists can show their skill, and they can write themselves into history. But the code gets even more personal. This next layer is all about body language, how specific poses and glances could say so much about an artist's genius, and how they saw themselves. We're going to quickly break down three of the most important nonverbal signals. You've got the signature head turn, the power of a direct stare, and yes, even the hairstyle could make a statement.
This pose was known as the Kopfwendung des Virtuoso, the head turn of the virtuoso. Check out Anthony Van Dyke. This casual, over-the-shoulder glance, it just screams effortless elegance. It's the physical version of sprezzatura, a kind of studied carelessness that makes genius look easy. It's basically saying, oh, this masterpiece, I just threw it together.
And then there's the direct gaze, and nobody, I mean nobody, mastered it like Rembrandt. His eyes lock with yours, and that act just breaks the barrier between you and the art. It's a confrontation. He's not an object to be looked at, he's looking back, asserting his presence, his inner world, his psychological depth. He's putting himself on equal footing with you, the viewer.
So, the artist has proven they're smart and deep. Now it's time to claim their social status. Self-portraits became these powerful tools for self-promotion, transforming artists from humble craftsmen into actual cultural celebrities. To do this, artists borrowed a format that was usually just for kings and nobles, the portrait d'appareil, or the state portrait. In these paintings, every single thing, the clothes, the curtains, the props, the background, is all carefully picked to broadcast power, wealth, and importance. And here's our confident friend Pierre Mignard again, giving us a masterclass in the portrait d'appareil. He's draped in rich fabrics, surrounded by classical sculptures, pointing to his own work and family. The message could not be any clearer. I am not just a painter. I am a man of culture, a gentleman of status, the head of a dynasty. It's an advertisement for his brand. We've cracked the codes of skill, presence, and status. Now we get to the final and most profound layer. How artists started to portray their own internal state, their very psychology, as the true source of their creative power. This all kicks off right here, with Albert Dürer's Melancholia I. For centuries, melancholy was just seen as a sickness, but during the Renaissance, it got a total rebrand. It became associated with the thoughtful, brooding temperament of a creative genius. And this pose, the head resting on the fist, it became the universal symbol for it. And you better believe artists adopted this code. Look at Caspar David Friedrich on the left and Kathy Kollwitz over 100 years later on the right. Both are explicitly using Dürer's melancholy pose. They are visually connecting themselves to this long tradition, signaling that their creativity is born from deep thought, from introspection, and even from suffering. Their genius is internal. So there you have it. From showing their skill in the studio, to hiding in plain sight, to using body language and lavish props to claim their status, and finally to bearing their creative souls, artists built this rich, complex visual language to tell us exactly who they were. Which, of course, brings us right back to where we started. These artists were consciously crafting an image to be remembered by. They were the masters of the original selfie. So the next time you point that camera at yourself, think about the old masters. What story are you telling? What codes are you using to define your image for the future?